there you are, right with you.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
I so wasn't. I the countdown. What happened there? Anyway,
you were waiting for the cocktails, the countdown. You got to be ready.
Listen, we've worked in television long enough. We should be ready for a surprise cue and not get caught out. Has anything happened since last we were with you? I'm not sure it has it? That was 2 weeks ago when we were basking in the glory of Medina Spirit's Kentucky Derby. I think it's just a dream as I welcome you in from Southwest London and several thousand miles away.
Turned a nightmare.
Yeah, but fear not. For the next hour, we are just going to celebrate the good things in this sport. This, of course, is the all-night speakeasy cocktails and conversation where you frankly can get as jazzed up as you like and not have to worry about the overage. And what you do in Kentucky is perfectly acceptable in California, in Pimlico, and in New York. So we are all just one big harmonized family, right on the statute from minute one, Brittany, right?
There you go. I like it. Big hello to everyone tuning in. Dorian Dickinson, I saw an Instagram post. He had made the 2 cocktails that we were set to make this afternoon. But Nick Luck, why will we be missing our 3rd musketeer today?
We are. I feel like I'm missing a limb, really, this evening, because it's just not the same without our buddy and brilliant mixologist Mark Tubridy with his brickwork in Brooklyn. He has just had to be called away at the last moment on family business, but he assures us all is well, and he is going to be back with us this time next week. So, Mark, if you do catch the show or manage to catch it at any time in the next few days, we're missing you. Big love, and we welcome you back next week to get us all pie-eyed. But as things stand, we have to do it for ourselves, Britt. And I have a nice, healthy, good-sized bucket of a nice puy-puy here.
I will give you one guess as to what I am drinking tonight.
Well,
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
You've got your pre-con. You have got your huge big glass of Rombauer. Yes.
It only seemed fitting, right? And how about if we've got this tweet ready? There was a very special tweet right after Rombauer won the Preakness from none other than Rombauer Vineyards, congratulating the connections. I have to guess, and this should have been one of my first questions, is John and Diane Fradkin, are they Rombauer drinkers? I would assume so with a name like Rombauer. But yes, they tweeted out congratulations to John and Diane Fradkin and trainer Michael McCarthy of Rombauer winning the 146th running of the Preakness, beating the odds and coming from behind, outstanding. And they, of course, have their bottle of Rombauer in hand. I believe that's a Sauvignon Blanc. I'm more of a Chardonnay gal, but cheers to all included. Gotta love that, right?
I'm more of a Shard man as well. Tia Menard's been in touch. Hi from the backstretch at Woodbine. Loved seeing Rombauer take the Preakness. Michael McCarthy missing his family in the post-race interview, though. And thoughts with everybody in Canada now as you try and get racing going again. And we're right behind you.
Well, it sounded like great news as of today that they're going to start moving forward with the plan in place to get racing back up and going. It has been at a standstill for a very long time. So, my thoughts with everybody, because when you don't have racing, much what we know when the pause came here to Southern California across the nation, it affects all aspects of the industry, everybody that works with these horses, the men and women on the backside. So hopefully they can get that up and running literally and figuratively as quickly as possible. Fill us in on the latest before we bring in, of course, our guest of the evening, Michael McCarthy. What is the latest with Royal Ascot? Some news coming out in terms of England and people being able to be on site?
Yeah, so since May the 17th, so since Monday last, people have been able to go racing again. So not many, but you can get 4,000 or half the capacity, whichever is the smaller number. Unfortunately, it's coincided with a week of completely crappy weather, so there haven't been many out, but it's been great to see people back at the races again. And we're in this period between May 17th and June 21st when that is the situation. That is the government guideline. Beyond June the 21st, it's more like a full crowd or something approximating capacity. Unfortunately, Royal Ascot is in this next phase. So they, by government guidelines at the moment, can only have 4,000 a day. But there is a possibility that the government will ask Royal Ascot to be a pilot event or a test event for events that take place thereafter. Therefore,
Okay.
it's possible, but not necessarily likely, that they push up towards maybe 10,000 a day. But they have to plan for 4,000 a day.
Right.
It's a complete nightmare, really, whichever way you slice it. But at least there are going to be a few people.
Well, we'll go with the glass half full approach, much like my glass of Chardonnay over here. Dorian says a shame our Royal Ascot tickets got rolled over to 2022, yeah, but glad they will have 4,000 fans a day at least. Jeff Hall asking, is Stradivarius racing prior to Ascot? So you're going to have some big time names coming for those 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, the quality of the sport's going to be fantastic as usual, and we're expecting a decent contingent from the US as well, even though Arne Pearl fluffed a lines the other day. Stradivarius won't run between now and Royal Ascot. He ran in the Sagaro Stakes at Ascot 2 weeks ago, and he won tidily enough without needing to do anything spectacular visually. But it's then when you looked at the split times and saw what he did in the final couple of furlongs that you realized that his bizarre rapier-like speed for a horse who can run 2.5 miles was still very much intact, even at the age of 7, and with all his man bits fully intact.
Can he do it? He would be going for, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 Gold Cup.
So when Yates
tie the record,
when Yates did it, everybody said it would never be beaten. Partly because of that, because the difficulty of keeping a horse that is entire on the job for that long, competing at the highest level and running over such long distances without other factors starting to get in the way. So. But I think he will. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that was it after that. But I think he might just do it.
Final question about Ascot before we bring in our special guest. Do you think Her Majesty will be in attendance this year? That is what a big part of why the Americans love to tune in is to see the royal family.
I hope so. I mean, it's not definite. I hope so. If she is, then I don't think there's going to be a royal procession. I think she's just going to come in a car and whatnot. But I hope she makes it there for at least some of the week. She's got a few interesting chances as well lined up. She's got 1 or 2 2-year-olds that could turn up. She's got a horse called Tactical that was a bit disappointing the other day, but back up in distance, he could run well. Yeah, there's a few horses that she could be represented by, I think.
Well, lovely. We look forward to that. But what we look forward to in the immediate future is welcoming in our special guest of the night. That is Preakness winning trainer Michael McCarthy. Ooh, but we're buffering.
Don't worry, I've got every faith.
Well worth the wait, much like Rombauer flying down the stretch in the Preakness.
I have every faith that the great man will appear very shortly.
I'm hoping with a glass of Rombauer.
I think we might be able to hear him, but not necessarily see him at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. We can hear you. We can't see you, but at least we can hear you.
Even better. Even better.
How are you going, Michael?
Very good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Not a bit.
Michael, what has the last week been like for you, media-wise, just getting back to Santa Anita after winning your first Triple Crown race with your first Triple Crown starter?
It's been nice. It's been a little bit overwhelming at times, but it's really been nice. Heard from a lot of people I haven't heard from in quite a while. So to get messages of encouragement and praise and stuff, really just special. It's nice to have a horse in a Triple Crown race, let alone win one in your first try. Don't know if I could have written it up any differently, but it's been great. It's really been good.
We spoke the other day, Michael, and you were still sort of coming down to earth, but you've had a little time to reflect. How have the last sort of 72 hours been for you, and how's the reaction been? Particularly, I'm thinking back home.
It's been great. Everyone here in California has been very supportive. Just really glad that another Triple Crown trophy was able to come back this way. Just goes to show you we might be light on field size, we might be light on numbers, but out here we're not really light on quality. So we'll see if we can do it again in 3 weeks' time. But the last 72 hours have been really good. Nice to get back to the barn and celebrate with my guys here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot goes into winning something like that. A lot goes into winning any race, but I've got a bunch of guys here that made that possible at Baltimore and Pimlico last week. So to get back to be able to thank them personally, kind of have a couple of laughs and high fives and what have you, it's been great.
Hey, tell us a little bit more about your team, because I thought you made a real concerted effort, as did Flavien Prat, to thank everybody that helped get Rombauer to this position. Flavien thanking the pony girl because he was a handful in the warm-up, the groom. You wanted to thank the groom and your entire team. So tell us a little bit about this family that is Team Michael McCarthy.
So actually, Rombauer is taken care of by a gentleman named Cleo Torres. And Cleo actually couldn't make the trip to Baltimore. He's got another horse here named Smooth Like Straight that's getting ready to run in the Shoemaker Mile. And we had taken Cleo to Kentucky a couple of weeks before with Smooth Like Straight for the Old Forester Bourbon Turf. So he'd had plenty of miles on the road. He's not a spring chicken anymore, wanted to stick around. But the gentleman that's looking after Rombauer now, Lionel Aguilar, longtime employee, Bobby Frankel, worked for some good barns around the backside. He did a fantastic job. Obviously, as you guys know, on Preakness Day, the horse was a little bit of a handful, some music coming out of the infield. Rombauer happened to get a little wound up back there. I think it was the bass that got him going.
Major Laser.
He was definitely a handful. And I second Flavien, thanks to Lionel and the pony girl who were able to get him onto the racetrack in one piece, over to the backside. Horse settled in nicely. But it's been a team effort here. Osman Cedeno gallops the horse every day. He's done a fantastic job. They have a real rapport. Look, there's so many pieces to this puzzle. The girls that do therapy on him, I can't thank them enough. So to mention them, everybody that had a little bit of a part of this would take us a while, but they know who they are.
Was it fairly obvious to you from an early stage that this was a pretty talented horse, or was he quite anonymous early on?
I wouldn't say he was anonymous. It was apparent to me real early that he would run, as we say, he would run all day here. He was a horse that after his gallops wouldn't blow much. Works came easy for him, although not rapid. They were solid, and he just seemed to get into a rhythm and keep clicking off a rhythm in the mornings here. When he broke his maiden on the turf, it was more or less a case of him just being ready to run and having a little bit of a stamina-based pedigree that helped him kind of get over the hurdle. Some of these early 2-year-old races in the season that are going a mile and further, the farther they go, the slower they get. In this horse's case, the farther they went, the faster he got. He came the final quarter of a mile, and I believe sub 23 seconds or something like that. But he has just been an easy horse from day one. He certainly looked fast on Saturday. Sometimes these good horses, they show up, they'll go as fast as you like, as slow as you like. I remember that certainly being the case with a filly we had at Todd Pletcher's named Princess of Silmar, who was sort of eerily similar in the same way. But I wouldn't say he was a standout as a young horse, but he's gotten better with age.
This is a great question from one of the viewers, Mary Jane McKittrick. She said, what's your connection to the owners, Michael? How did you get teamed up with the Fradkins?
That's a very good question. I can't remember exactly how we got hooked up, if it was a referral or whatnot, but they've had another horse here in training with me for quite a while, who was actually Rombauer's brother, a horse named Kono, for about 3.5 years, 4 years now, I believe. So it's been a nice relationship. We get along well. We've had a couple of tense moments here the last few months, but when you get a nice horse like this, every decision is crucial. So it's been great. It's the last couple of days, obviously it's been all bells and whistles. The highs and lows of this game, you've got to enjoy the highs. And we've had a good time here the last week, 7 days.
Go ahead, Nick. I was just going to have him elaborate a little bit on the tense moments and how you kind of work through those together, knowing that it's all for the horse and the best interest of the horse that you have these discussions.
Yeah, you know, as a trainer, there's certain things I'm looking for with my horse. I'd like to go ahead and sometimes, you know, I think a race here at Santa Anita might be better. John thinks a race at Golden Gate may be better. You know, so you kind of got to find a common middle ground. Luckily, it's all worked out. You know, it's just one of those things. It's John's a very good handicapper. I don't put too much into that kind of stuff. I obviously am handicapping my horse. I'm certainly handicapping pace scenarios and things like that. But as far as judging, you know, this race in New York, this race in Kentucky, I'm going to concentrate on what I've got going on right in front of me, which is the horse. So it's nice that John can take the time to do that kind of stuff and analyze a bunch of things, and I'll just worry about what's going on with the horse. But it's been a nice give and take.
I think you might be the only trainer ever, Michael, who's conceded that they enjoy owners' involvement in the placing and handicapping of their horses.
I don't think I used the word enjoy, did I?
Said it worked out.
Worked out. Yeah.
Michael, there's so much more to talk about with Rombauer, but take me back. You said it was so great being back at Santa Anita with your entire barn, but this is kind of home away from home for you. I had read somewhere that you grew up close enough to the track that you could hear race calls. When was your first introduction to the sport, to Santa Anita?
You know, we used to come to the racetrack as kids with my parents on occasion. As the crow flies, my parents' house is about 1.5 miles away from here, right in this neighborhood, the Hugo Reed neighborhood, right across the street from the racetrack here. In the early 80s, when they were getting, you know, 30,000 and change on the weekdays, you would be able to hear the call of the last race from my front yard. I used to remember quite a few retired gentlemen walking by my house. They would walk to the races, walk back from the races in our neighborhood and that kind of thing. Then as I got older, I had some friends in high school. Their fathers were involved in the game. Marty Jones, son of Gary Jones, Michael Sherlock, son of Gary Sherlock, trainer here. And just as well, Corey Black went on to become a successful rider here, won, you know, 1,500 races, that kind of thing. So I was a product of my environment. A lot of the guys I hung around used to enjoy coming to the races. So it was a familial place around here for sure.
But was it the case that you wanted to train racehorses, or did you just want to work in the business in some shape or form when you were a kid?
As an adolescent, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, which is the case with so many kids these days. I found a connection here. I love the energy. I love the action. I love the fast pace. I'd have to tell you, I wasn't in love with working 7 days a week and waking up real early in the morning. But if you're around here and you enjoy it enough, there's a certain level of maturity that goes along with working here. It may take some longer than others to kind of embrace that. It certainly took me a little bit longer, but once I was all in, it's really all I've been interested in doing.
Was there a specific moment in time for you where you said, okay, I might not like the mornings, I might not like the 7 days a week, but I can't imagine doing anything else? Was there a time that it flipped for you?
I always liked the mornings. I didn't have a problem with the 7 days a week, but you know, when you're in college, you're in university, you like to go out at night, you like to stay out late. That's not conducive to something, you know, horses are here all the time. Everybody needs to be, you know, boots on the ground. I would say it was probably my sophomore year in college when I decided that this is really what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I had been about a third year sophomore by the time I decided it was what I wanted to do. But once I did, I jumped into it wholeheartedly, and there was never any looking back.
What were you studying, Michael?
I had multiple majors, international business, think I might have been an English major at one time, possibly animal science. Yeah, there were a couple of them. I just couldn't put my finger on the pulse of what I really wanted to do.
I feel like you could use all of those things, though, in your current job.
If you showed up and applied yourself and went to class, you probably could, yes.
And where did you go to college? I'm assuming it was nearby.
Cal Poly.
Cal Poly Pomona. That's such a great story. So at what point did you hook up with Todd Pletcher? When was the move east?
I went to work for Todd August 25th of 2002. It kind of evolved earlier that spring. Ron Anderson had reached out and mentioned to me that, this might be a good place for me to kind of get serious, back east, getting on board, working for someone like Todd. I had a few short interactions with Todd over the phone. It didn't seem like they were going anywhere. The final time I spoke to Todd, I might have caught him on a bad day. I remember it quite well. He was fairly curt on the phone. I hung up. I said to myself, right, that's it with that. I'm not doing that. I'll stay right here in California. Strangely enough, about 2 weeks later, Ron Anderson had called again and said, you really need to get in touch with this guy. And I told him, absolutely not happening. But I did. I called one more time. He asked me if I'd like to go back there and take a look around for a day, spend a morning there real quick. I did so. He extended a job to me, a day or two later, and the rest is history.
So what was it that made you change your mind? You'd had that initial bad experience, and as you said, it was sort of once bitten, twice shy. What made you think, nah, I'm going to pick the phone up again?
I wouldn't say it was a bad experience. It was just, you get told so many times, don't need any help right now, or maybe later on, or can't see anything happening in the future. But the way it worked out was two of Todd's assistants, George Weaver, who you all may know well, and Todd's other assistant, Cindy Hutter at the time, who is now Cindy Weaver, we're getting married. We're having a child, had a son named Ben. They decided to go ahead and take some time off late in the fall, late summer, early fall, and things fell into place. I was able to kind of go ahead, pack up my bags, and head back east.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, Michael, was that for you a sort of very satisfying time? Was that sort of buccaneering time when things are really just starting to get going in your career?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a new adventure. You're picking up, you're moving thousands of miles to the opposite seaboard. It's a big operation. If you're here in California, at the time I was working for someone, Ben Cecil, fine English trainer who's been out here for the last 25, 30 years or what have you. He's trained Eclipse Award winners, working in a barn like that, 25 or 30 horses, and then you go into an operation where there's 130 horses. It's quite a step up. It's a little bit more demanding. It's a little bit more intense. You basically, in an operation like that, learn how to get the job done, whether it takes you 1 hour, 4 hours, all day, all night. You just work till it gets done. And I think that's part of, everybody bought into that culture and everybody buys into that culture. I think that's why Todd is so successful. Not only is, obviously, he's got the acumen, the horses, but he's got the people around him that rally. So when you get involved with something like that, it's you pull up your bootstraps and you fit in, or you fall out real quick.
I think there's so much that if there's anybody young watching this that wants to go into really any job, there's so much that you can take away from it in the sense of determination, hard work, tenacity, how much that matters, especially as a horse trainer. What do you think it is, Michael, your biggest takeaway from spending that time working with Todd?
I've said this a couple of times. It would take longer than this podcast just to be able to do something like that. it's show up, it's work, it's give it everything you have every day. It's attention to detail, organization, attending to each horse, whether they're $10,000, $10 million, anywhere in between, and just doing what's best for them. You make a lot of sacrifices in an operation like that, personal, professional, but it starts from the top. It's for me, it was something I wanted to do, so I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. It took me a little while to kind of fit in and find my place, but once I found my place, I was off and running. I was able to go ahead and run my operation or my division, as Todd said. You operate it like you want it, and that's all I needed to hear. Young people getting into the game, these things don't happen overnight. It takes a lot of sweat equity. You're going to have good days. You're going to have a lot of bad days. You're going to have even more really bad days. But if it's something that you've set out to do and you're determined to do it, there is no reason why you can't flourish.
Michael, what makes the sacrifice worth it to you?
Saturday is a pretty good example, certainly tons of sacrifices. We sacrifice, as you know, Brittany's dad is a very successful trainer. Nick, I'm not sure what your family background is, but you spend enough time in front of the camera doing all sorts of things. You know that there's sacrifices to be made, whether it's personal relationships, appointments, birthdays, holidays, unfortunately, the odd funeral that you can't make. But you look back on it, it's gotten you to where you are today. The Preakness was a culmination of those things, but it doesn't need to be winning a Preakness. It's sometimes winning a race late on a Friday afternoon and make you feel just as good,
And Headley Bell has been in touch saying he knows your family means so much to you, and you've partially answered the question: how do you manage the 24/7 and the family? And it was very notable to me how you mentioned and thanked your wife Erin and your daughter Stella straight away after the race, and you were just so sad that they couldn't be there to share it with you. Am I right, Michael, that you and Erin actually met in elementary school?
We were in first grade together. Yes. Amazing. We sat in alphabetical order. So she sat behind me. I'm MCC. She's MCN. Her maiden name's McNamara. So I guess in first grade, you're 8 years old, something like that. Could you imagine going 30 years and having to wait for the love of your life after you've been sitting right in front of them all that time, just wondering, McDreamy right in front of you, But my wife and my daughter are a big part of what I do. My wife does an awful lot. On Saturday morning of the Preakness, we were on the phone at 3 a.m. California time, and she was kind of getting my set list, aligned and things like that. She does more than pull her own weight. I couldn't do a lot of the things I do without her. Not only the financial side of the business, but just appropriating time, making sure that everything is in place, flights, things like that, keeping me on the ball as far as reminders and things like that. It's a family affair. As I just said before, Brittany, she obviously knows. My backbone is pretty strong, but with my wife behind me, it's almost unbreakable. It's a huge part of what I do.
Michael, that was my favorite part of the afternoon. Not just your emotion talking about your family, but I was privy to the first family FaceTime after you had won the Preakness. And you could you sensed how much a part of it they were, even though they weren't on hand. What did that moment mean for you as a family?
Yeah, I got a little wound up coming down the stairs. When the horse crossed the finish line, I kind of looked around. There was nobody there. And, on a big day like that, you're kind of looking for someone to fist bump, high five. And I had a few friends around, but, I'm not big on – we're not big hugging kind of guys. But you walk down the stairs and you kind of get to thinking as everyone is around you and it'd be nice to have your wife there, your daughter there. Got down onto the racetrack, and fortunately, one of the first people to come and thank me was Todd Pletcher. And as I mentioned before, that's about as close to family as it got that day. It kind of came full circle moment for me. Then once we kind of had a minute break out in the winner's enclosure, I was able to kind of reach in my pocket and check in at home and kind of wave hi and show both of them kind of where we were at, what was going on. Technology is a wonderful thing, but it would have been a lot nicer had they been there.
For sure. And to what extent, Michael, is your daughter Stella immersed in racing now?
She is immersed a couple different ways. She's immersed in water most of the time. She's a big swimmer on a swim team, takes up quite a bit of her time. But she is at the races as often as possible. She likes to spend some time here in the afternoons, feed time, but she keeps her finger on the pulse of what's going on. She watches a lot of races during the afternoons and things like that. So she is also, I tell you what, when we're having good days, it's great to have her around. And when we're having bad days, it's nice to go home and be able to compartmentalize the two things. So yeah, she is a welcome face around here. I don't know if this is the kind of thing that I would wish for her to get into. That's up to her. She'll forge her own career path, but I think she knows kind of the hours and what it takes to do something like this. So I think she's plenty happy just going ahead and maybe being a fan and hopefully someday being an owner. That would be my number one goal, is that she would be lucky enough to own a few racehorses.
Well, Michael, my dad said the same thing to me, and here I am talking to you. Your daughter, Stella, had such a love for your Breeders' Cup and Pegasus World Cup champion, City of Light. We're showing the photo that Zoe Metz captured when she was saying goodbye as he was headed off to stud. What was it about this horse in particular that just really struck her heart?
Yeah, look, there's a barn full of horses here. They bring everybody together. It's not only, my family, but my extended family outside the door here and down this shed row. We were lucky enough to go ahead and travel all over the country, participate in some big days, Breeders' Cup, and being a Breeders' Cup champion that year, or actually the year previous with City of Light in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And then ultimately his last race being in the Pegasus World Cup. And the morning after, he was off to start the second half of his career, stud duties at Lane's End. And, as a young kid, I don't think you understand all the nuances that go into doing what we do. And I think she thought maybe that, breeding season just happened right down here in stall 37. And as you guys know, that's not quite how it works. But in a young child's mind, you don't get all the particulars. So when she finally realized he was leaving and that was it, and it would be a while before we would see him again, I think she was busted up, as was I. Kids have heroes. I have heroes. Kids dream. Their imaginations run wild. Pictures, drawing, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of pictures around the house of City of Light, drawings of different horses. So when a part of that, it's such a big part of what your family relates to. When a piece of that family leaves, I'm sure as a 7-year-old, that's something tough to kind of cope with at the time.
But that comes from you, doesn't it? Because there's so many trainers with young children and young families. That sense of attachment to the horse and that sense of appreciation of what that animal has done for you and your family, that's coming from you to her, right? Exactly.
I mean, I think it's coming from it. I think you're correct. I think it is kind of coming from me, but it's coming from all angles. It's coming from all sides. It's the races, the excitement of being at the races, spending Saturday afternoons at the races when you could be out playing with your friends. As I said, there are sacrifices, and I don't think it's truly a sacrifice to go to the races. And sometimes you might be missing out on some things, but it's a family event. We enjoy it. My daughter certainly enjoys it. So, yes.
Michael, just talking to you a little bit, it strikes me that you're someone who feels things very deeply, and you're a deep thinker about the game as well. Does that make training racehorses easier or harder, given the bumpy nature of the road?
You know, a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It's whatever it is. I guess in my case, it works for me. You know, there are some people that are may not always be right, but are never in doubt. You know, I tend to go ahead and second guess myself from time to time. I think a lot of trainers do, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to trust your gut. You know, and I feel like I've seen enough, been enough places, been enough situations where, as you said, you know, I think thinking things over, I think it's a style that works for me. It may come a lot easier to others, but for me, it takes a little while. So maybe that's why I'm a deep thinker, because I'm just slow.
Yeah. Is there a moment for you where that, you know, you just listened to your gut, move forward, and things worked out? Because we know how much in this industry they don't necessarily. Is there a moment just from that standpoint that you're most proud of for really trusting your instincts?
Every day. Yeah. I mean, every day I feel something like that. I mean, I trusted my instincts I went out on my own after having a wonderful job at Todd's, to forging relationships, being around wonderful horses, going all kinds of places, to leaving that, traveling due west, starting for myself here in California, starting with one horse. And I think it took about 3 years, I think, before we actually saw some light at the end of the tunnel. You sort of question what you're doing from time to time. But yeah, I mean, my gut was always just keep on forging forward, keep on pressing. If you keep on getting up in the morning, keep on trying to do what's right, sooner or later, I think there will be some breaks. And I don't think that's not just in horse racing, that's in life. So I think if you are, you set your mind to it, you just keep on persevering. At the end of the day, things will work out. Might take you a little while, but things will work out.
Hear, hear. Life advice right there. Wayne Montgomery wants to know, what was your first win, Michael?
My first win came with a filly at Del Mar named Desert Willow. Desert Willow was owned by a gentleman named John Borba and his partner, Jody Mudd. Jody Mudd is a former Players Championship champion on the PGA Tour, who dabbles in some breeding and some racing and all around horseman and fan of the game. And John Borba has been a wonderful sounding board for me. It's a relationship that, case in point, what this kind of game can do. You never know the people that walk into your life, by way of racing. So my first winner was, I believe, like in August. I'd been on my own for 7 months, had only run 3 or 4 horses. So it took me 7 months to get my first winner. And it was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I bet it was. It's all come to glorious fruition now. I must welcome Julie Ingle into the show. She says hello late to the show tonight. Julie, where have you been? And if you have,
I've got a follow-up for Michael on the first win, because what I love about this show is it's long enough where we can really just ask a myriad of questions to get to know the person. So say we found out from your former boss, Todd Pletcher, he likes a good glass of red wine, kind of how he decompresses and celebrates. Michael McCarthy, how do you celebrate not just your Preakness win, but how about your very first win?
That's a very good question. I can't remember exactly how. I think I was so mentally exhausted. I think I went and just kind of hung out on the couch afterwards. Really,
That
I don't think
sounds
I
so in line with all trainers.
There wasn't a whole lot of good wine laying around the house to be drunk at that time. It might have been a beer. It might have been whatever beer was left in the refrigerator.
I love it.
Oh, well, I hope this week has been a week of significant celebration. You haven't been too quiet, have you?
Yeah, nah, you know what? It's been nice. We had a nice family dinner last night. Get home, see my parents. You know, they were obviously very excited, very proud. So to break some bread with them, have a couple drinks, have a couple laughs was great.
Was your family always quite supportive of you moving into this realm?
I don't think so. You know, I think it took a little understanding for them to sort of see what the game of racing is all about. I think as a younger man, I enjoyed being at the races. I enjoyed working. I enjoyed staying out late. When I decided that this is really what I wanted to do and told my parents as such, they had embraced it. I didn't think that they were fully on board in the beginning because, you know, when you get involved in this, there's not a whole lot of financial security. There's not a bunch of money to be made. The experience you get, you know, it serves you in the long run, but in the short term, it's tough to get by. I know I relied on the help of my parents several times, but it's all been worth it, obviously.
For sure. I want to zone in now on last Saturday and just try and live the race with you a little bit and sort of feel what it was like to be in your shoes as they left the gate Saturday evening. Lovely day in Maryland. Your first ever Triple Crown runner. Yeah, you knew he had a shot. Yeah, some people thought he had a shot, but let's face it, the noise leading up to the race was in a completely different place. So just take me through how you felt watching those gates open.
As we said earlier, the horse was a little bit on his toes in the post parade and in the saddling enclosure. And then once we got out onto the turf course, waiting for riders up. So once we were able to go ahead and get Flavien on board and with the pony girl and the horse had kind of got into a nice rhythm, settled quietly, left the starting gate, was in a great spot. Going into the first turn, you'll see here, there's horses directly to Flavien's inside and outside. I thought there was an opportunity where he could have gotten pinched back there a little bit. It worked out well. Around the turn, we were in a smooth spot, probably 7 lengths, you know, back behind the pack. Once we straightened up the backside, we were in a great spot. Flavien probably found himself in the 3-path, always moving in a nice rhythm. In the Kentucky Derby, I think you'll see you've got a 20-horse field. You know, sometimes the race is won and lost by the time you get to the first turn. 10 horses the other day. We were in a great spot turning up the backside. As you can see here, you know, this is right about where they turn up the backside. We're in a great spot here. I thought the horse was traveling well. We're 3 off the fence. I believe I can't remember if that's Ram right inside of us or,
yeah.
And then Chad's horse is as well as right there too. Coming to the half-mile pole, I thought we were a little bit closer than going to the 3/8 pole. I looked directly kind of just to the right of where my horse was, and I could see Chad's horse did not have a whole lot of forward momentum. Looked back behind to see who was making some progress and who was getting ready to uncork a run, and it really didn't seem like it was anybody. Coming to the 3/8 pole or through the 3/8 pole to the quarter pole, I sort of lost sight of where the horse was. So I thought he had backed up, But what had happened is Flavien had sort of wheeled the horse outside. He had gone outside of Midnight Bourbon and Medina's Spirit. And when they kind of straightened out through the lane and I saw the white bridle and the Frackens white helmet cover, I got a little excited. And my first thought was, you know what, this is going to be nice to have a respectable performance in a Triple Crown race. And when he got to their throat latch and I could see John Velasquez working, I could see, both riders really, really getting after it. And then Flavien looked like he was still in a rhythm. And when he put some daylight between those two, it was like an out-of-body experience.
There's a photo of you, and I think Steve Asmussen was maybe to your left, just a couple ways away, and you see all of these fans cheering. And Michael, you just have this look. You look so serious on your face. So I was wondering, what was the first thought that went through your mind as he crossed the wire first?
This is a family show, so we'll keep it family. But I didn't root, I didn't cheer, I didn't stop my program. As I said, when I saw that horse's helmet cover and his white bridle coming at me, it was my world went silent around me, and I just was kind of watching the horse and Flavien in a rhythm. And then when he hit the wire, it was like, holy cow, something like that. It wasn't really holy cow, but it was
something along those lines.
Something along those lines. But it was, you're in a little bit of shock. You're in a little bit of disbelief. I was confident the horse would show up and run well. I knew the mile and the 3/16 would be of no issue whatsoever. But look, there's a lot of factors that go on. As I said, the horse was wound up. I didn't know how he would handle that, but he had his mind on running, and running he did.
Here's what I'm intrigued by, Michael. I mean, you had no doubt that this was a good spot for this horse, but long prior to this, you'd entertained the notion of running him in the Derby. I mean, then we've discussed this week, and there's no use raking over it all again. But what I really am interested in is why you knew, on the basis of what he'd done, which was good but not great, why you knew that he was a legitimate horse for big honors in Triple Crown races.
It's the last couple weeks here, the last 3 weeks, he had been so good. And I say the last 3 weeks, the last month, just the horse's overall attitude. He had a 90-day break after the Breeders' Cup, a working break, had a very good race in the El Camino Real Derby, jumped on a plane, went to Keeneland, ran a respectable third to a champion in essential quality. When he came back, about 10, 15 days after he got back, seemed like he just kind of had turned the corner. His attitude was great. His gallops were getting stronger and with more purpose all the time. And he was just, I was reading all the signs that he was telling us, and it just looked like the horse was coming up to a big effort. It's body language, it's attitude, it's demeanor around the barn. You look in that feed tub, and the bottom of his feed tub is shining. So you're looking at a happy, healthy horse, and I think people saw that here last Saturday. But I was always bullish on him, stamina-wise, being able to get the trip. I thought it was a race. Even I was bullish on running the horse in the Derby. I thought he'd get a wonderful setup in the Derby. He's a horse that doesn't need to take his racetrack with him, and he showed.
That did. I mean, lived up to all of those indications of how well he was doing. So you had mentioned that there were, sometimes tense conversations with the owners about placement of this horse. What were the conversations like after the Preakness, which happened pretty quickly to make the decision to go on to the Belmont?
It's kind of one of those things. It's obviously, look, the horse was running underneath the wire on Saturday. He wasn't a tired horse. He was running away from horses, galloped out well. On Sunday morning, the horse seemed like he was full of himself. It's a big effort. It's a huge leap forward. Coming back in 3 weeks. In this year, so there's some unfortunate circumstances where the Kentucky Derby winner, you don't know if he could be the Kentucky Derby winner. if a horse were to get moved up that necessarily didn't cross the finish line first, and you've won one leg of the Triple Crown, a horse has been promoted, you're able to go to the third leg of the Triple Crown. If you were to get lucky in a spot like that, and the horse repeats his performance like Rombauer did in the Belmont, you've now won 2 of the 3 legs of the Triple Crown, possibly looking, at a championship type scenario. Those are all big things in a couple of different ways, as far as the stallion career goes, as far as
the free wine that Rombauer is going to send.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, have you sent a case of Rombauer to your old governor Todd Pletcher this evening for not running Malafart in the Belmont Stakes and pointing her instead to the CCAO?
I have not, but he's obviously been. That's something that he's done before. When Rags to Riches won the Belmont, one of the greatest races I think I've ever seen. It looks like that filly is more along the lines of that ilk. Obviously it would be a big threat if she did run in the Belmont. But look, we're going to line up against 10, 12, 13 other horses that are coming in with heady credentials in their own right. So I wouldn't trade places with anybody. I've said that all along. In certain scenarios, but yes, I'm very happy with where I'm at right now and with the horse I've got to lead over there.
I think we're just beginning to hear from Rombauer, and the future looks so bright for him. You may not have an answer for this yet, but as it was reported, and correct me if I'm wrong, Flavien Prat, it will be on Hot Rod Charlie. So who will you have ride Rombauer if that is the case?
That's a very good question. We've got plenty of options right now. It's horse first. We'll figure out a rider here at a later date. It would be nice to have someone like Flavien aboard. The horse has had multiple riders with multiple good rides. So, Belmont is a tricky spot. Push comes to shove. I'd say there's probably a fairly decent chance that it would be someone that rides Belmont day in and day out.
Okay. Michael, do you have to call that yet? Given, we know that any horse can, God forbid, take a bad step anytime or come off the trail for whatever reason. Would you leave the door open for Flavien right up until the last possible minute?
You know what? I don't know. That's a very good. That's a great question. I've been in this situation before, and it worked out well for me. It's horse first, rider second over the next, 15, 16 days, whatever it is. The horse will work probably, at some point next weekend. I'm not going to wait around, and I don't think my owners will wait around for them to make a decision. And if that's the case, I'm fine with that. I'm good with whoever rides that horse on June 5th. I'll be fine with. Almost fine with, I should say.
I can't wait for it. It's going to be a sensational race. And Michael, I can't thank you enough for all of your time. Are you enjoying this? The media, the attention, is there any part of you that likes this?
I don't. I shouldn't say I don't mind it. It's not something I seek, but you know what? It's if there's a way to seek it, this is the right way, I guess. Winning a classic. I'm just fine by myself, actually, but it's been nice. There's been a lot of people that have reconnected, reached out. It's really what racing is about, it's a huge deal. So I'm glad to do it. I don't have any complaints. It's a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of things have been asked, and I'm happy to do it. It's just sometimes, these things can be a little bit out of your comfort zone.
And the other sort of weird aspect of this year, and listen, I can't believe it's only 2 weeks since we did our last show when everything was normal-ish. Is that you've sort of been a bit of a totem in the last 5 days for the sort of positive feelings of toward the sport from so many people. Have you sort of felt that a little bit? Have you felt that, not sort of responsibility, but have you felt that warmth towards you because people want something good to root for when we'd had, a pretty torrid week and are likely to have a torrid few weeks ahead?
I think there's plenty good to root for in our game. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Timing is everything, and it was unfortunate timing what's unfolded. So it's the way it panned out. I'm fine with it, but like I said, there's so much good in the game. We had a little bit of bad news that unfortunately kind of has spiraled a little bit and become a little bit bigger than what we're used to. I think I would be happier if they celebrated the horse's accomplishments and stuff like that than focusing on the negative that's been swirling around. A lot of people are counting on racing to make a livelihood, not just the people here on the backside, people on the front side. So when something deleterious happens or something that doesn't shine a bright light on what we do, it's tough on everybody. So I wouldn't say I'm a totem in any way, but I'm glad they picked me.
And I think a lot of people are. Well, with what you said in mind there, then, Michael, perhaps a sort of closing thought on Rombauer himself. The more you watch that Preakness, the more explosive his performance seems. In your heart of hearts, do you believe that this could be a real one, not just a horse that popped up in a Triple Crown race, but a horse that could go on and dominate his division this season?
He's real enough right now. There are so many good races around the country, for 3-year-olds. The way things are now, the talent pool is getting thinner and thinner all the time. I'd like to say he's certainly a real one. I've been lucky enough to be around some real ones. He doesn't fit the mold. He's a little bit of an outlier. He reminds me of a very good horse that I was lucky enough to be around, English Channel, who just came from kind of out of nowhere, a little bit on the obscure side, but he had all kinds of things going for him. Most importantly, the one thing he had going for him was he always had run on his mind. And I think a horse like that, he'll take you places. And so we're just along for the ride. As long as he's healthy, we'll seek out a couple of other big days, and hopefully there's plenty more ahead for him.
I love it. Michael, thank you for the time. Question, will Aaron and Stella be going to New York for the Belmont?
You know what? That's I don't know. I was awfully lucky with them. Without him there last week, I'd hate to mess up the juju right now. I would imagine they'll make the trip. Win, lose, or draw, yes, they'll be there.
I love it. This was just such a pleasure. Good luck in New York in a few weeks' time, and I'll see you this weekend at Santa Anita.
Thanks, guys.
Michael, thank you so much.
Nick, much appreciated.
What a man.
Cheers to Rombauer.
Yeah, and it would be lovely if this horse built, wouldn't it, toward the back of the year. It really would. It would,
He looks like he's just getting going. If you think about the fact that was his very first victory on dirt, that says a lot. Was it the Kentucky Derby field? No, not necessarily, but he beat them very impressively. I think that maybe he's just hitting his best stride, and we could see a lot of, really wonderful things from Rombauer. I loved everything that Michael had to say, especially in his post-race comments about smaller trainers. Obviously, I'm slightly biased because my dad would be considered a smaller trainer, but he was really putting the light on those that maybe don't have hundreds of horses, but can still absolutely get the job done. So hats off to him and his whole team, and Aaron and Stella, who are very much a part of the team. It was great to hear just about all of that and his journey to get there.
I mean, the news line, isn't it, is that it'll be likely to be a New York-based jockey riding the horse. I mean, I don't suppose it's a massive surprise to anybody, but it's a weird position to be in, isn't it? And I didn't want to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I think Michael was very generous with his answer there.
That's why I just asked, and I didn't want to say like.
Well, I mean, again, but I that's what I always admire that in America. When jockeys get taken off horses here, or they move, they switch horses or whatever, it tends to be that people tend to get very emotional about it. But everyone's self-employed. Everyone's trying to run a business. Everyone's trying to do the best they can. It's normally not personal. People are just looking for the best medium and long-term opportunities. And, I get it. It'll just be interesting to see. It'll just be interesting to see the nearer the time comes. And if this horse is working just spectacularly well come Belmont time, whether Flavian and Derek have a change of heart, or whether they're so committed so hard to Hot Rod Charlie, and the opportunities that Doug is going to give them outweigh, what they can get from the association with Rombauer.
Flavian does have a new agent, Brad Pegram.
Oh, it's Brad Pegram now, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and who knows?
How long has he been with a new agent?
Probably about a month or so, maybe, maybe a couple of months. Who knows? Time flies these days. Mm-hmm. But it should be interesting. Jockey placement will be, I think, a big topic of conversation. You have Rock Your World, who's going to run in the Belmont. And obviously there was a lot of talk surrounding Umberto being taken off and Joel Rosario being put on. Who knows who will ride him in terms of the Belmont. It's going to be a phenomenal race. And whoever gets aboard Rombauer, I'm sure will give him a fantastic ride. And it makes sense. Belmont is a quirky track. It's the type of track where you have to wait, and wait some more until you make your move. Helps to have that experience.
My favorite named correspondent, Katie the War Hero E2 Tank Engine Streams, says, you sound tired, Nick. I mean, as I point out most weeks, it is past midnight here. So I'm not as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as my co-host.
Well, I hope everyone had fun. We are very much so missing our third man, and that is Mark Tuberty, and look forward to having him back next week. Can we give a tease of who we're having on next week, since we've been talking a lot about the Belmont?
If I knew who we had on next week, then I'd be able to give you a tease.
Well, I'll tell you. We have some group associated with Hot Rod Charlie, or as they like to call, Chuck.
Oh my word. The boys are coming on, are they?
The boys are coming on. The boys are back. The boys are back in town.
Did you personally sign them up Derby Day?
I did not. Our lovely producers have handled all of that.
I saw you making their acquaintance just as we were exiting the paddock on
great group. Bringing lots of energy to the track. Lots of youth.
I was standing a few steps behind you as always.
I don't mind that.
Yes, I know. Listen.
Well, hey, since it is midnight for you, we should let you go to bed. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. We will have cocktails next week. We will have boat racing next week. We might go a little long next week because of all of that, but it'll be worth it.
You're getting a bit giddy and already.
It is a little hot in here.
Right. And next week, we're turning the temperature up, folks. But for the moment, from Brittany and from me and from our very special guest, Michael McCarthy, with our thanks to him and cheers to Rombauer. We'll see you next week. Bye.